The Zothrine Triumvirate had maintained galactic order for exactly 1,247 standard cycles through a deceptively simple philosophy. Fear worked. Not the abstract philosophical fear of consequences or the vague anxiety about potential outcomes. No. The Zothrine specialized in immediate, visceral, this is happening right now terror that bypassed all higher cognitive functions and spoke directly to the ancient survival centers of the brain, or whatever analogous organ your species used for processing imminent mortality. It was, objectively speaking, an efficient system. Much more efficient than the previous galactic administration, which had attempted to govern through committee consensus and had promptly collapsed when the committee spent 600 cycles debating the proper definition of governance without ever actually governing anything. The Zothrine had looked at that mess, cracked their equivalent of knuckles, and decided that sometimes you needed to grab civilization by the throat and shake it until it behaved. Supreme Executor Krillvax embodied this philosophy so completely that his name had become a verb in 43 languages. To Krillvax, something meant to intimidate it so thoroughly that it experienced a fundamental personality change. He stood 4 meters tall when fully extended, which he usually was because height advantage was intimidation advantage. His exoskeleton was the color of deep space, black with highlights of purple that pulsed with his mood. And currently those highlights were cycling through aggressive patterns that had been focus tested on 200 species for maximum psychological impact. His mandibles could crush titanium. His claws could carve through ship hulls. His voice could make grown Bravaxians weep. And Bravaxians were notoriously difficult to emotionally move because their neural architecture processed emotions through a redundant system that required at least 3 separate stimuli to trigger any response. Krillvax could trigger all 3 with a single sentence. He had personally conducted 972 intimidation sessions. His success rate was 100%. There was a waiting list of species who wanted to hire him for private intimidation work, though the Triumvirate frowned upon that sort of freelancing. There was a holographic statue of him in the Hall of Effective Governance. Children across 36 worlds had nightmares about him, which their parents actually encouraged because those nightmares led to better behavior. The system worked because biology was surprisingly consistent across species. Didn't matter if you'd evolved from pack hunters or solitary ambush predators, from herbivores or omnivores, from land dwellers or ocean dwellers. When faced with a credible threat of immediate death, the ancient survival programming kicked in: fight, flight, or freeze. And since fighting a Supreme Executor was suicide and fleeing was impossible in a sealed negotiation chamber, everyone chose freeze, then capitulate, then sign whatever document Krillvax slid across the table with his claw, which is why the current situation made absolutely no sense. The human vessel Perseverance had docked at Orbital Station Helios 9 approximately 6 hours ago. And already Krillvax was questioning several fundamental assumptions about the universe. The ship was small by galactic standards, obviously a survey vessel rather than a military craft, with the kind of paint job that suggested it had been through some adventures and was overdue for maintenance. The crew manifest listed 12 humans, which was a species so new to interstellar politics that their homeworld wasn't even properly cataloged yet. The Triumvirate's xenobiology database had exactly 1 entry for human, Homo sapiens. Carbon-based biped from planet Earth, Class 12 Deathworld designation, approach with caution. Krillvax had not approached with caution. Caution was for species that hadn't perfected the art of intimidation. The dispute was straightforward enough. The human ship had claimed salvage rights on 3 asteroids in the Tau Ceti sector. Asteroids that the Triumvirate had marked for future mining operations but hadn't yet actually begun mining. Technically, By the ancient laws of space salvage, the humans had a valid claim. Technically. But technical validity meant nothing when Supreme Executor Krill Vax decided otherwise. The human delegation consisted of one person. This was already unusual. Most species sent entire diplomatic teams, partly because negotiations were complex, and partly because they wanted witnesses to verify they'd tried everything before capitulating. But the humans had sent Lieutenant Vasquez, communications officer, who had walked into the negotiation chamber with a worn datapad, a cup of something steaming that their translator identified as coffee, and an expression that suggested she'd rather be literally anywhere else. She was, by Krill Vax's standards, pathetically small. Maybe 1.6 meters tall, thin enough that a strong wind might knock her over. With dark hair pulled back in a style that was probably meant to look professional, but mostly looked like she'd done it in about 30 seconds while running late. Her uniform was clean but not pressed, suggesting either a species-wide disdain for military discipline or a personal philosophy that life was too short to iron things. She sat down across from Krill Vax without being invited to sit, took a sip of her coffee, and said, "So, asteroid rights. We claimed them. You want them. Standard territorial dispute. Should we just cut to the part where you threaten me? Or do we need to do the whole diplomatic preamble first? Because I've got a botany seminar at 1500 hours, and Professor Chen gets really passive-aggressive if people are late." Krill Vax's mandibles clicked in surprise. The sound echoed through the chamber, which was designed with excellent acoustics, specifically, so his intimidating sounds would echo impressively. "You presume much," he said, his voice dropping into the resonance range that usually made species' inner ears vibrate uncomfortably. "The Zathreen Triumvirate does not negotiate with those who steal what belongs to the greater galactic order. We didn't steal anything. We claimed salvage on unclaimed asteroids. That's literally in the Space Law Codex, Section 47, paragraph, She checked her datapad. 12. Yeah, paragraph 12. It's pretty clear. Finders keepers, losers weepers. "I do not think you understand your position," Krill Vax said, rising to his full height, his exoskeleton plates expanding to make him appear even larger, his bioluminescence cycling into threat patterns that had made warlords reconsider their life choices. "You stand before Supreme Executor Krill Vax of the Zathreen Triumvirate. I have ended bloodlines. I have dissolved governments. I have rendered entire planets compliant through the application of specific, targeted fear. And you, human, are about to experience why 972 species have chosen wisdom over stubbornness when facing me." He leaned forward, his massive form casting shadows across the entire negotiation table, his claws gouging marks into the metal surface. "I will describe to you, in excruciating detail, the 50 methods by which I can end your existence. I will begin with the methods that are quick but agonizing. Then I will progress to those that are slow and psychologically devastating. I will paint for you a picture so vivid of your own mortality that you will beg to sign away not just your asteroid claims, but your species' entire claim to this sector of space. I will—" "Can you ballpark a time estimate?" Vasquez interrupted, checking her chrono. "Because 50 methods sounds like a lot, and the botany seminar is really important. We're discussing extremophile organisms this week, which is relevant to asteroid mining, actually, so this all connects." Krill Vax stopped. His threat displays actually paused mid-cycle, which created a flickering effect that made him look less terrifying and more like a malfunctioning advertisement hologram. What? "Time estimate for the 50 methods. Are we talking 5 minutes per method? 10? Because that's like 4 to 8 hours of death threat descriptions. and I don't know if I can stay focused that long. I have ADHD. Well, I'm not officially diagnosed, but pretty sure. Add it to the list of things I should get checked out, but probably won't because medical appointments are annoying. The Bravaxian observer in the viewing gallery made a sound like a deflating balloon. The Xinthian trade representative activated her personal shield, apparently deciding that whatever was about to happen required protection. "You are not afraid," Krillvax said slowly. His threat displays completely stopped now, his bioluminescence returning to neutral patterns because his body was too confused to maintain aggressive posturing. "I mean, define afraid," Vasquez said, taking another sip of coffee. "I'm afraid of the ocean, specifically the deep ocean. Anything below 200 meters is a horror show. I'm afraid of expired dairy products. I'm afraid my student loan debt will follow me into space somehow, like they'll figure out interstellar collection agencies." "But you killing me?" She shrugged. "I grew up in Florida. We have alligators. Do you know what an alligator is?" "I do not." Prehistoric reptile hasn't evolved significantly in millions of years because it's already a perfect killing machine. Armored hide, bone-crushing jaws, can run 30 kilometers per hour on land and swim faster in water. Ambush predators that lurk invisible just below the surface. They live in our residential areas, in our golf courses. We have signs that say, "Beware of alligators," like that's a normal thing to warn people about. I watched one eat a full-grown deer when I was 7, at a public park during a family picnic. She set down her coffee. "Then I moved to Australia for college. That's a continent on Earth. Do you want to know about Australia?" "I am not certain." "Too bad, because you need to understand context. Australia is where evolution went crazy. We have spiders the size of dinner plates. We have jellyfish whose sting causes pain so severe that the primary treatment is vinegar and prayer. We have snakes, so many snakes. Like someone decided to concentrate all the world's venomous snakes into one continent for efficiency. We have crocodiles that make alligators look friendly. We have birds called cassowaries that can disembowel you with a kick. We have octopuses. That's plural for octopus. We never agreed on the proper pluralization. Anyway, we have octopuses that can kill you with venom despite being the size of a golf ball. That's a small sphere we hit with sticks for fun." Krillvax was no longer trying to intimidate her. He was listening with the kind of horrified fascination usually reserved for xenobiology documentaries about nightmare worlds. "The ocean around Australia has sharks," Vasquez continued, warming to her topic in a way that suggested she'd been storing up this rant for a while. "Great white sharks, bull sharks, tiger sharks, also box jellyfish, which are so venomous that if you get stung, you have maybe 10 minutes before cardiac arrest, and that's if you're lucky. And Australians, the humans who live there, they just swim in that water. For recreation, they call it going to the beach. It's considered a normal weekend activity." "Your planet is class 12, Krillvax said quietly. "That is accurate?" "Yeah, we're up there. Not the worst. I think that honor goes to some lava world somewhere. But Earth definitely tried to kill us consistently throughout our evolutionary history. And it's still trying. We have weather patterns called hurricanes that can level cities, tornadoes that throw cars around like toys, earthquakes that split the ground open, volcanoes that bury entire civilizations, tsunamis that... You know what? You get the idea. Earth is mean." She finished her coffee. "So, when you say you're going to kill me with 50 different methods, my frame of reference is a planet that's been trying to kill all humans since we evolved. And we're still here. We survived. We didn't just survive, we thrived. We built cities on fault lines. We live in tornado alleys. We populate entire regions where the temperature regularly exceeds 50 degrees Celsius. That's hot enough to cook food, and we just live there and complain about the heat, but don't actually leave. The viewing gallery was very quiet. Several species were taking notes. This would be studied. "I have crushed rebellions," Krillvax said, and hated how defensive he sounded. "That's great. I once had dengue fever. That's a mosquito-borne illness. Mosquitoes are tiny flying insects that drink blood. The fever causes pain so severe it's called breakbone fever, because it feels like your skeleton is shattering. I had that for 2 weeks while finishing my thesis paper on interstellar communication protocols. Got a B+. Would have been an A, but apparently I rambled in the conclusion section. I was delirious with fever. What did they expect? Your species is insane. Well, yeah. But it's survival insanity, you know? We had to get a little crazy to make it. We're pack-bonding primates from a death world. We looked at wolves, apex predators with powerful jaws and pack-hunting strategies, and we said, let's make friends with those. And now we have dogs. We domesticated murder beasts and made them into companions that we dress in cute outfits. We have a festival in Spain where we run in front of bulls for fun. Bulls are massive, aggressive herbivores with horns designed to gore predators. We run in front of them, deliberately, while wearing white clothes so the blood shows up better when someone gets hurt. She pulled up something on her datapad. Here's my personal list of near-death experiences from just the last standard year. Got caught in a riptide off the coast of Brazil. That's an ocean current that pulls you underwater. Survived by remembering to swim parallel to shore. Encountered a coral snake while hiking in Colombia. Venomous, can kill in hours. Looks pretty so tourists try to take selfies with them. I did not take a selfie. I ran. Then there was the incident with a moose in Canada. What is a moose? Large herbivore, looks goofy, has antlers, can weigh up to 700 kilograms, territorial, kills more people in Canada than bears do. I got between a mother moose and her calf by accident. She chased me. I climbed a tree and stayed there for 3 hours until she got bored and left. Then I climbed down and finished my camping trip because I'd already paid for the campsite. Krillvax sat down. It was an involuntary movement. His legs just sort of gave up on the concept of standing. You paid currency to be in a location where large herbivores might kill you. It was a very nice campsite, had showers. Those are water-based cleaning stations. The water was hot. That's considered a luxury. I need you to understand something, Krillvax said, and his voice had lost all its intimidating resonance. He just sounded tired. I have spent 300 cycles perfecting the art of terror. I have made it my life's work. I have studied psychological warfare across hundreds of species. I have a doctoral dissertation on the application of existential dread in diplomatic contexts. And you, a single human from a planet I had never heard of until 6 hours ago, have completely invalidated my entire career by being immune to death threats. I'm not immune. Death threats work fine on humans, just not death threats from outside sources. We're really good at threatening each other. We have entire genres of entertainment based on humans threatening other humans. Murder mysteries, thrillers, horror films. We pay money to experience fictional terror. We created haunted houses where people dressed as monsters chase you with fake weapons, and we wait in line for hours to experience that. She leaned back in her chair. The problem isn't that you're not scary. You're very scary. Great presentation, solid imagery. The mandible thing is excellent. The problem is that Earth already did its worst to us, and we survived anyway. You're competing with hurricanes and crocodiles and brain-eating amoebas. Those are single-celled organisms that can kill you if they get in your nose when you're swimming. Earth has organisms that kill you through your nose. How are you supposed to compete with that? I do not know, Krillvax admitted. I genuinely do not know. Right. So here's what I'm thinking, Vasquez said, pulling up a document. We skip the intimidation part, which clearly isn't working and is honestly wasting both our time. Earth wants to keep the salvage rights on those 3 asteroids. They're rich in rare minerals we need for manufacturing, and we found them fair and square. In exchange, we're willing to offer the triumvirate a 15% stake in mining proceeds, plus complete access to our mining safety data because, apparently, you guys have a terrible safety record, and we've gotten really good at not dying in industrial accidents. You are negotiating. Yeah, that's what I was trying to do from the start. You're the one who went into the death threat thing. All species fear death threats. Most species didn't evolve on planets actively trying to kill them. Look, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I spent my teenage years swimming in waters with tiger sharks, hiking through jungles with fer-de-lance snakes. That's another venomous snake. They're everywhere. And driving on highways where people operate vehicles at lethal speeds while texting their friends. A very large alien threatening to kill me is like Tuesday. It's not even an interesting Tuesday. The Xinthian trade representative was making frantic notes. This was going into multiple reports, possibly a book, definitely a book. What do you fear? Krillvax asked, genuinely curious now. Bureaucracy mostly, paperwork. The idea that I filled out a form wrong and now I have to redo it. Disappointing people I respect. Climate change, that's our planet getting warmer because we burned too many fossil fuels, which are ancient organic remains we use for energy. We're actively cooking our own planet and we can't seem to stop because economic systems are complicated. That scares me. You? You're just gonna kill me. That's easy. That's over quick. Filling out a wrongly formatted expense report? That's eternal suffering. Your species weaponized existential dread against yourselves. I mean, we're really creative with self-inflicted problems. We invented nuclear weapons and pointed them at ourselves. We created social media, which somehow makes people both more connected and more isolated. We have a stock market that occasionally has panic attacks and crashes the global economy. We're a mess. But we're a mess that survived a death world, so we're a competent mess. Krillvax looked at the document she'd pulled up. It was reasonable. Genuinely reasonable. The percentages were fair, the safety data would actually save lives, and the triumvirate would maintain influence over the Tau Ceti sector without having to fight for it. If I agree to this, he said slowly, what happens to my reputation? You become the supreme executor who successfully negotiated with the scary Deathworld species. That sounds pretty good, reputation-wise. You could spin it as so intimidating that even the species immune to intimidation respects you. Very marketable. You'd be legendary. You are trying to help me save face. I'm trying to make my botany seminar. But yeah, also that. Look, you seem like you're good at your job. The whole intimidation thing is very professional. It's just that humans are a bad target demographic. We're the species equivalent of that one student who doesn't respond to normal teaching methods. Not because we're better, just because we're weird. There was a long silence. In that silence, the various observers in the gallery watched as Supreme Executor Krillvax, legendary intimidator, undefeated terror of 972 negotiations, made a decision. The triumvirate accepts your terms, he said. 15% stake, safety data included. Earth maintains primary salvage rights. Great. Vasquez stood up, gathering her things. I'll have the contracts drawn up by end of business today. Oh, and Krillvax? That thing you said about the 50 methods? Maybe save that for the Bravaxians. They seem really affected by numerical specificity. She headed for the door, then paused. Also, if you're ever looking to diversify your intimidation portfolio, try economic threats. I will audit your finances scares humans way more than I will kill you. Something about tax law triggers our survival instincts. Then she was gone, leaving behind a negotiation chamber full of stunned aliens and one supreme executor experiencing a profound career crisis. The Bravaxian observer slowly emerged from behind his shield. Did that human just give the supreme executor negotiation advice? Yes, said the Xinthian trade representative. And he took it. I watched it happen. This is going in my dissertation. In his private quarters later, Krillvax composed a message to the Triumvirate High Council. It was longer than he'd intended, but the situation warranted detail. Successfully negotiated mineral rights agreement with human delegation. Recommend immediate policy revision regarding Earth and affiliated colonies. Species demonstrates immunity to conventional intimidation tactics due to evolutionary adaptation to high-threat environment. Homeworld assessment confirms Class 12 Deathworld designation with multiple extinction-level threats occurring regularly. Human psychology appears to have normalized constant mortal danger as baseline existence. Further recommend against military engagement. Species combines Deathworld resilience with pack-bonding instincts and technological adaptability. Previous assumption that small stature indicates weakness is incorrect. Humans compensate for physical limitations through tool use, cooperation, and apparent inability to recognize when they should logically surrender. Note: human negotiator provided genuinely useful advice on alternative intimidation strategies. Suggest establishing human consultation program for diplomatic training. They understand fear intimately, having experienced comprehensive terror from their own planet, and may offer valuable perspective on psychological warfare. Personal note: requesting 2-week leave. Need to process several fundamental assumptions about universe. Also need to research Earth fauna for own peace of mind. Human mentioned hippos in passing, and I need to know if I should be concerned. The message was sent. Within 6 hours, it would trigger a complete revision of galactic diplomatic protocols. Within a month, human negotiators would be in high demand across 3 sectors. Within a year, there would be a mandatory course at the Triumvirate Diplomatic Academy titled Deathworld Psychology and Its Applications. But that was all in the future. For now, Krillvax sat in his quarters, watching documentary footage of Earth that his research team had compiled. He watched hurricanes destroy coastal cities. He watched volcanoes bury entire regions. He watched tiny mosquitoes that killed millions. He watched humans do something called parkour in urban environments, which appeared to be deliberate acrobatic movement through dangerous terrain for no survival-related purpose whatsoever. And he understood. Humans weren't brave. They were normalized. They'd been threatened so consistently, so thoroughly, by their own planet that artificial threats just didn't register at the same level. They'd developed a cosmic sense of, well, everything's trying to kill me anyway. Might as well get on with my day. You couldn't intimidate someone whose baseline was survival against impossible odds. You couldn't threaten someone whose planet had already done its worst. You couldn't frighten someone who genuinely had to be somewhere at 1500 hours and viewed your death threats as a scheduling conflict. The galaxy would have to adapt. Or, as Lieutenant Vasquez might say, get over it and move on because the universe didn't care about your feelings and there was always more paperwork to file. In Conference Room 7, the botany seminar was in full swing. Professor Chen was discussing extremophile organisms discovered on asteroid surfaces, their ability to survive hard vacuum and temperature extremes. Vasquez took notes diligently, asked intelligent questions, and didn't mention that she'd just accidentally revolutionized galactic diplomacy. She had, after all, made it on time. That's what mattered. And somewhere in the cosmic accounting of irony, the universe noted that humanity had once again stumbled backward into significance, this time by being too desensitized to their own mortality to notice when they were supposed to be scared. They'd survived a death world and maintained their appointment schedules. They'd faced down legendary intimidators and worried more about getting a good grade in botany class. The galaxy would learn to work with that, or around it, probably both. Because the humans were here now, and they had paperwork to file.